All right, hello everyone. This is Lydia Joy. I am here to walk you through a fascinating tissue mineral analysis from a real client case that demonstrates exactly how biochemical patterns can impact something like your vagus nerve function as well as your overall healing. This is especially relevant if you listen to my recent podcast on the vagus nerve and its crucial role in health. If you have not yet, you are welcome to do so. The link will be below for you. But this particular case involves someone with a history of mold exposure who's experiencing issues with her cycle. Longer cycles, taking longer to arrive, difficulty ovulating, significant GI symptoms, mainly when she ovulates, and then that luteal phase being somewhat challenging for her as well. Now, despite, working on her health and doing a lot of wonderful things, she's been a little stuck here with this piece. And I wanted to show you just a little bit of what's going on in her hair tissue mineral analysis that can help us kind of see what's going on and make correlations and then do some things to help improve this. So looking at this hair test, there are several key patterns immediately that stood out to me, particularly that directly relate to vagus nerve function and the body's ability to heal. So I want to try to break this down in a way that makes sense, even if you've never seen a hair test before in your life or, you're new to it. So the first that I want to talk about is what we could call a fast four pattern, where all four main macro minerals are running low. So this is a kind of like a longer term stress pattern, if you will. And so her calcium, her magnesium, her sodium, and potassium, as you can see here, are all low. And I wrote it over here as well. So I'm going to compare it to what is optimal. So her calcium is 30, it's running low. Normal is 40. Magnesium is in an okay range. It's, normal is 6. And then sodium is getting low, as quite low as well. And that's 9 and normal is 24. And then we have the potassium, which is very low at 2 and normal is 10. Now, calcium, we know it's not just for our bones. It's actually essential for nerve signaling and muscle function. So when it's a little low, the nervous system can become a little more hypersensitive and a little more overactive. And magnesium is nature's relaxation mineral. It calms the nervous system. It helps regulate stress responses. So when it starts to get low, and if it was lower than this, it would be even more of a problem. But, this is going to impact the body and it will lack that crucial resource for maintaining calm and balance. Then when we get to sodium, sodium helps maintain proper electrical conductivity in the body and it supports your adrenal function. And so at less than half the optimal level, this suggests the body's electrical system, which the vagus nerve relies on, is severely underpowered. And then when we get to potassium, which also works with sodium to create electrical impulses throughout our nervous system, this is just at like 1/5 of the optimal value. And this means the electrical signaling throughout the body, including the vagus nerve function, is very significantly compromised. So when these key essential minerals are collectively depleted to this degree, you can think of it like trying to run a sophisticated electrical system with a weak battery, right? Signals become unreliable, systems start to malfunction. Now, let's go ahead and look at some of these ratios. So I want to look quickly at the sodium to potassium ratio simply because we just looked at her really low sodium potassium. So even though this ratio isn't too bad, it's getting a little high. I don't consider it high here, but it's getting up there, right? So this is a ratio that can tell us a little bit about someone's stress resilience, right? And their stress response. But it's not too bad on paper, but it's kind of like the car, trying to maintain the right speed, but with less gas in the tank. Almost maybe an almost empty gas tank, because we're talking about those two minerals above being super low as well. So this puts a strain on her entire system. Then we can look at the zinc to copper ratio here, ZnCu, and this needs to be hanging out here around 8, and we've got this in a high range as well. So zinc and copper need to be in balance for proper neurotransmitter function. These are the chemical messengers your nerves use to communicate. And this high ratio suggests that her body is struggling to use copper properly, which directly affects how her nervous system communicates and regulates itself. So in simple terms, it's like having static on a phone line, right? Like the messages get garbled between the brain and the body. All right, I want to skip for a second down and talk about the sulfur to copper ratio. So S/Cu, normal range is 2668. Hers is getting a little high, 3476. And so this is going to impact her detoxification and her mold recovery because, um, you know, sulfur is essential for detoxification, but when it's this disproportionate to copper, or when it's getting more disproportionate to copper, it can indicate that the body's struggling with proper detox pathways. So a piece of it could be that the mold exposure has triggered an increased need for detoxification, but without the proper mineral cofactors, this process is going to be inefficient. So then again, it can directly impact the vagus nerve because toxin accumulation can irritate and dysregulate nervous system function. Now, building on that, we have the copper molybdenum ratio, CuMO. We can see that 356 is normal and hers is 700. So this is really high. Now, we have to understand that molybdenum is essential for proper copper metabolism. It's a cofactor for the enzyme sulfite oxidase, which helps convert sulfites to sulfates, which assist with detoxification. So for copper metabolism, molybdenum is required for the enzyme sulfite oxidase to function properly. So this enzyme also helps form ceruloplasmin, which is that protein that properly binds and transports the copper through our body. And when we don't have adequate molybdenum, copper can accumulate in the tissues in its unbound form, which can be problematic. So when this ratio is this imbalanced, copper metabolism becomes inefficient. And then it leads to, potential issues with catecholamine production, like your dopamine, your norepinephrine, your neurotransmitter balance, and then even mitochondrial function, since copper is needed for cytochrome C oxidase in the electron transport chain. So basically, it's a big player in your energy. And then, so that too will also directly impact the vagus nerve function because we need proper neurotransmitter signaling, right? That's super important for the vagal tone and the regulation. All right, now I'm going to go back up to the NAMG ratio here. Sodium to magnesium, normal is 4 and hers is 2.09. So, this ratio reflects cellular energy production. It's basically how efficiently your cells create the energy needed for all bodily functions. It's like in this pattern, it's like half, right? So it's like kind of trying to power your home with a generator that's only working at half capacity. Everything runs, but not optimally. So this constellation of mineral imbalances can explain why her vagus nerve, that master regulator of rest and digest, isn't working properly despite her best effort. So her body just lacks some of the fundamental resources needed for proper nervous system function. And, the imbalanced detox pathways, in light of the mold exposure, are further stressing an already compromised system. So, how does identifying these specific patterns translate into actual healing? Well, that whole fast four pattern, that first thing we looked at, changes things, right? We don't want to just like focus on a lot of these external vagus nerve stimulation techniques that maybe you've heard. There's so many going around. If you just go on Instagram for a minute, if you talk about vagus nerve at all, you'll see thousands of them, right? It's just like very much in people's awareness now. We're talking about it a lot. And then also gut protocols, right? Like gut protocols are important too, like repairing the gut, but you know, there's this foundational piece of underlying mineral depletion that's preventing these systems from functioning properly. So it's like trying to fix, well, it's like what we're trying to do is fix the foundation, right? The foundation of a house, for example, instead of just like, I don't know, uh, repairing the walls or painting over cracks, or we're really just trying to get to the foundation here when we bring in the mineral piece of the puzzle. So these patterns can explain why her symptoms connect to her cycle. The vagus nerve helps orchestrate hormonal communication in the body. When the minerals that are needed for that proper nerve function are depleted, digestive function becomes dysregulated, particularly with this low sodium and potassium here. Um, Her hormone signaling becomes dysregulated, especially during increased metabolic demands like ovulation. So the other piece is that high sulfur in comparison to the molybdenum being low, and in comparison to that copper being low. Right, I talked about those. These two pieces can help us see why detoxification is challenging, because without addressing this specific imbalance, her body is going to continue to struggle clearing toxins efficiently. Um, and then that, when we have toxins going on in our system and our detox pathways are not optimally eliminating what they need to be, these toxins remain inside of us and they kind of just like ricochet around. They just keep doing their thing and causing problems, right? And that irritates the vagus nerve and it makes it dysfunctional. So when we can look at this information and start to put in a plan and track it over time, we can objectively measure the progress rather than just, relying on symptom improvement only, or I don't know, because that can fluctuate from day to day, right? Like in a cycle, if we're looking at someone struggling with cycle, we want to see change within 1 to 3 months. Um, so when you have somebody who's got complex health issues, it's really helpful to be able to see it, be able to track it, and then come up with a carefully sequenced plan that, allows them to remineralize more deeply than they have been, get those depleted macrominerals working better while maintaining those ratios, like improving the ratios. So we want to make sure she's well mineralized. And then we have to support that copper metabolism and utilization because it plays such a huge role in energy production. And then address this sulfur-copper imbalance to improve her detoxification, the sulfur-molybdenum imbalance to improve the detoxification. And we can also, of course, include external things that are, more targeted vagus nerve techniques, right? So she loves singing. And I talked about all this in the podcast episode too, by the way, which you can check out. But she loves to sing. And so, that was an easy one for her to keep working on, knowing that, that's going to be helpful. Then things like applying essential oils, specifically to the mastoid bone and giving a little support to the vagus nerve that way, right? And of course, those practices, shouldn't be something you have to do all the time for the rest of your life per se. Not that singing is a bad thing to do the rest of your life, but the understanding is that they will become more effective when her mineral foundation improves, right? So um they might not work as great, right? Like, so I've had a lot of people say things like, oh, I've tried these vagus nerve hacks and, I don't feel like they're helping as much as they should be, right? And that's because that's only one piece of the puzzle, right? Your internal terrain needs to be really shored up for any external effort to work really, really well, right? So the key advantage is that we're tracking. We're going to retest in 3 to 4 months, see how these patterns have shifted, correlate them with like what's been going on in her symptoms or improvements, and be able to then go back in and say, all right, where have we made the improvements? Where do we need to keep shoring up? And that way her body starts to naturally regulate better all on its own, and things just start to shape up. So this creates more of a clear path from just the external supports um, to better self-regulation and, not becoming dependent on something that you have to always do to deal with your vagus nerve, right? Um, so this is a personalized approach. It's fundamentally different from generic protocols or lab generated supplement recommendations that don't take the full human experience into account. A lot of times, labs will generate a specific sequence of supplements based on overarching patterns without having a meaningful conversation about the person's symptoms, about their lived experience. So in the long run, that doesn't really work very well. It's like a disservice because, we have incredibly complex, unique bio-individual patterns that need to be carefully addressed for optimal restoration. So, integrating this objective data from the analysis and then this subjective experience of someone's life and their symptoms, that's how we can create a truly personalized path to healing that honors the whole person. So, if you're experiencing health challenges, complex health challenges, if they involve hormonal imbalances, digestive issues, or lingering effects from environmental exposures, your biochemical terrain may be keeping your vagus nerve stuck in patterns that prevent full healing. So, what I've demonstrated today is just a tiny example of how a personalized analysis can reveal the specific patterns that, some of these more generic approaches miss, or some of these external only approaches miss. And, everyone's pattern is going to be unique, right? So that's why I think personalized biochemical support can be incredibly transformative when other approaches have fallen short. So I personally offer a more comprehensive HTMA consultation to help you, explore these specific patterns, develop a tailored approach to rebalancing. And this is really, really valuable if you've been implementing like all kinds of healing stuff, right? And you're just kind of like not fully um, moving the needle, if you will, or seeing the lasting results that you deserve. So if you're interested in learning more about that, you can check out the link below. And I do hope that this little sneak peek inside an HTMA case study was helpful to you. I hope to do more of these. Let me know in the comments below what you think, and definitely check out the podcast episode as well.